alongside Tim Legler, I'm Scott Van Pelt, and here, Tim, we take notes all game long, and this was one of those nights that for the balance of this evening, it felt like we were going to be talking about the home team ahead 3-1 in this series. They had a 10-point lead late in the third, but Oklahoma City managed to stay in the fight, and when push came to shove, sometimes literally late, they had more and won. How?
I can't really put into words how improbable it is that we're going to a Game 5 tied at 2 with the way that this game was controlled by Indiana for the most part. Look at Oklahoma City's numbers tonight. They had 10 assists as a team. They made 3 threes, including a huge one, I think the biggest shot of the game by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when he cut that lead from 4-1. Here's what happened at the end of this game. They showed up in a big way defensively. Chet Holmgren was sensational during a 3 or 4 possession stretch with his ability to use length to switch out and guard. So their defense showed up the way that we saw it basically all year, but had a very difficult time corralling Indiana all of Game 3, most of Game 4. When they needed it, they tightened up defensively, forced some really bad possessions out of Indiana, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had enough juice in the tank to make big shots. Like, yes, he shuffled his feet on that baseline drive. They missed a travel on that, but there's a number of travels missed throughout the game. There's no question about it. But he had more balance, and he had more energy at the end of this game to close the deal.
And let's go back to why. Because early on, as we're sitting here watching, you're like, wow, they took the ball out of his hands after the defensive intensity and pressure we saw from the Pacers in Game 3. It's Williams handling the ball quite a bit, and that was interesting. And do you think that the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't have to handle the ball all night allowed him to have more gas in the tank in those critical final few minutes?
There is no question about it. He barely brought the ball up at all in the first quarter, and we were kind of sitting there watching it, and it looked strange. He spent a lot of possessions off the ball, would go to the corners, come off stagger screen to get it later in the possession, but definitely expended a lot less energy advancing the ball up the floor over the first 3.5 quarters. So he had more when he needed it late. You know, that 3 that he hit, you talk about a guy being tired at the end of a game on a night when they could not make a 3-point shot to keep them in it. He hits the big 3. He hits a mid-range. He gets to the line when he has to. He played like an MVP offensively down the stretch, and their defense gave them a chance. I did think Indiana played with some hesitation offensively. You know, you get that way sometimes when you feel a game slipping away a little bit. There was a little bit of hesitancy out of that team offensively, and OKC typically feasts off that if they see you back on your heels.
Siakam didn't touch the ball. It felt like forever in the late game scenario, and part of that is the defense of the Thunder, certainly, but you just have to wonder how he doesn't at least get a touch from a guy that's got a length advantage on a lot of people and has shown the capability to take and make big shots. That felt like a miss.
Definitely, and he has, again, for their team, I think Pascal Siakam has the most favorable matchups, most trips up the floor, because he gets smaller guys on him. He can shoot over the top, get something quality when he needs it. Again, it felt very perimeter-based those last 3 or 4 possessions for Indiana. They were trying to get switches and beat guys downhill, but Chet Holmgren was keeping guards in front and using that length to deter anything in the paint.
I'm on fire. It's 88 over here.